Good evening. Welcome to Crawley Borough Council's Planning Committee meeting. I'm Councillor Pritchard, Chair of the committee. There are no scheduled fire drills tonight, so in the event of a fire alarm, please leave the building via the spiral staircase and the main reception door. Once outside, turn left and go to the fire assembly point on Exchange Road. If you're unable to use the stairs, you'll be guided by a member of staff to the evacuation lift. The meeting is being live streamed via the Council's YouTube channel. Please note there is no comment function available. The Council is the data controller and will retain the data collected during this webcast. This will be done in accordance with the Council's published data retention policy. Anyone seated in the public gallery should be aware that by entering the room you are consenting to your image being captured by the automated camera system. Recordings will be used for webcasting or training purposes. The meeting agenda is available on the Council's website. Around these tables sit the committee members who will be taking decisions on the items before them. Officers of the Council are also in attendance, and I invite them to introduce themselves now.
Good evening, I'm Jess Damplin, Democratic Services Officer.
Good evening, I'm Siraj Chowdhury, Head of Governance.
Good evening, I'm Mark Robinson, Principal Planning Officer.
Good evening, I'm Clem Smith, I'm the Head of Economy and Planning.
I have apologies from Councillor Sivaraja, Councillor Burgess, Councillor Magali and Councillor Mullins. Any further apologies? Okay, we now take items 2 and 3 together. I will call upon committee members to declare any interests or lobbying in relation to any of the items. Please also declare if you've visited any of the sites. Councillor Ashraf.
No interest to declare. Thank you. No.
Councillor Bidwell.
Thank you, Chair. No interest to declare, and no, I didn't visit the site.
Councillor Jaggard.
Good evening. I've not been lobbied. I've no interest to declare. I have attended a site visit accompanied by officers for item 5, the TPO.
Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Chair. I've got no interest to declare. I've not been lobbied and I've not visited any sites. Thank you.
Councillor Nawaz.
Thanks, Chair. No lobbying to declare, no interest as well, and haven't visited the site. Thank you.
Councillor Patel.
I have no interest to declare and I have not visited the sites. Thank you.
Okay, and for the record, I have visited the site and I have not been lobbied and I do not have any interests. Now we come to the minutes of the last meeting held 27th of August 2024. Does the committee agree that minutes are an accurate record of the meeting?
Agreed.
Agreed. We now move on to agenda item 5, Tree Preservation Order 05-2024, the car park, the Boulevard. Can the planning officer introduce the report?
Thank you, Chair. This item is to consider the report to confirm the provisional tree preservation order made to protect the trees along the southern side of the Boulevard. See on the drawing on the right here, there's a number of trees. There's groups of 2 at either end of the car parks, then a line of trees that ran along the southern part of the car park opposite the shops. The trees are all on highway land. West Sussex is ultimately responsible for them. They're a mix of trees, I say, and they are predominantly in the lines planted in planting pits. The trees at the ends are generally more substantial. They're in the Queen Square conservation area. Well, most of them. The line for that roughly cuts through the middle of the car park. So as a bit of background context to this, in March this year the council received a section 211 notice. This was to undertake works to trees in the conservation area. In particular it was to fell 4 acacia and 3 silver maple. With section 211 notice, council had 2 choices to make on these. We can either have no objection, allow the works to be undertaken, or the only other option council thinks it's important is to put a tree preservation order on the trees to protect them. The trees were assessed, the amenity was considered significant. There are a nice line of trees. You can see some of the, I'll show some of these on the photograph. So on the left photograph here, this is from roughly the town hall, looking across the road towards the line of trees. You can see some large trees at the end here, and then some smaller ones that form the boulevard, the trees forming part of the boulevard. This is from roughly where the back of the Argus building is, again looking along the line of trees. So the two larger trees at the end here, and then a line of trees along opposite the shops. Just looking back to the town hall from the near the florist shop. Again, a tree right in front of us, a bit of a gap, and then some more trees further on as we go back towards the town hall. And again, a few other images. So this is from the western end of the boulevard, looking to the east. You see a full line of trees. You can actually see you can see some trees in sort of quite poor condition here as well. You can see where some of them are not in the best of health. There are some trees around this here. There's a tree of particularly poor condition. You can see from the canopies that some died back. And again, there's another image of the trees on the left there. Again, from the bank, looking back, it looks like quite a full canopy all the way along. And then from the other side of the road, so this is from close to where the post office was, looking back across the car park towards the trees. You can see there's a mixture of trees of age and size and that sort of thing. So I've set out, consider the trees have significant amenity, both in terms of the context of the conservation area. They form a boundary to the northern part of the conservation area, but also along the street. It's boulevard. Boulevard by definition is trees on both sides of the roads. They're quite an important constituent of that. They've got significant visual amenity, although it is accepted that some are in poor condition. Due to the nature of the Section 211 procedure, if the trees are not protected, then they could potentially fail and no replacements provided, so we could result in loss of the trees and then sort of further gaps in the trees that we have along there. As you can see, there are some trees have previously been felled. You can see some spaces you can see there's one space there, I think it's quite close to the entrance, but further along there are other spaces where they've been removed. We've lost some amenity. So the assessment has concluded that the trees forming part of this group around the car parks are important to the amenity. Tree preservation was put on all of the trees, not just the 4 that proposed to be felled. So there's a sort of wider assessment made of the amenity issue of all the trees along here, not just those that the notice was for. As I said before, as you noted, historically a number of trees on the road have been felled and they've not been replaced, and this has had an adverse impact on the amenity of the area. The order itself would cover 21 trees in all. There have been objections from West Sussex County Council and from the applicant to confirming this tree preservation order. So West Sussex County Council have highlighted that that the trees are already under their good arboricultural management, and they have a policy not to remove trees unless there are sound reasons to do so. So, for example, it may well be they need to remove a tree for safety reasons, or so maybe an impact on the highway, or from subsidence, that type of thing. They've also given in their report, they've also given quite an example of their good arboricultural practice. So they've given an example of one of the oak trees in this group, which does have a fungal infection, is one way to put it, I suppose, and that has been assessed, and rather than remove the tree, because it's not necessary given the type of infection, the type of issue it's got, just reduce the tree and manage it over time. They've also commented on the amount of time that tree applications are taken to process, and that this would add extra sort of work to the local authority. The applicant's consultants have also commented on the application. and the applicants have stated that the removal of the trees is to enable enhancements to the car park area, and that effectively the TPO overlaps with these improvements that they intend to undertake. They highlight the poor condition of some of the trees are in, leading to doubt about their long-term future, and that this conflicts with national policy guidance on how TPO should be applied. This is a factor as to, and it is really about their future amenity rather than their current amenity. It's generally accepted that when you look at the trees that they have a significant level of amenity. So whilst the council acknowledges that some of the trees may require works, they as a group do have a significant amenity value. This has been reduced historically by removal of some of the trees, and they haven't been replaced. The TPO seeks to afford the trees protection to provide longer term amenity to the Boulevard and the conservation area, Queen Square conservation area. And this includes the ability for us to actually get replacement trees in the future if trees that need to be required, and to maybe have some control over future works. I say, whilst it is unusual for Crawley itself to protect highways trees, and these are trees are ultimately responsible for West Sussex County Council, it's not unique. And due to the potential issues of the loss of amenity from the trees, it's recommended that the TPO is confirmed without amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we go any further, Councillor Chariton, can I ask if you have any interest, whether you visited the site and whether you've been lobbied?
I have no, I haven't been lobbied, and I have no specific interests in the site, and I have visited, yes. And apologies for a little lateness. It's been traffic. I've been driven up from Brighton. Traffic was terrible.
That's fine. You were here for the majority of the report, therefore, according to the Constitution, you're okay to participate and vote. Okay, moving on to the debate. Committee members wishing to speak should raise their hands. The officer will respond to queries. Sorry, do apologise, missed the line. There is one registered speaker in regard to this item. Will Thomas Philby come to the speaker's table? If you press the right hand of the two buttons, the microphone will switch on.
Thank you very much, Chair and committee members. My name is Thomas Philby. I'm representing the interests of RCP Parking Limited, and I've driven down from Norwich today to speak to you. So thank you for the opportunity. Since RCP has taken ownership of the site for running the site from NCP, we've been tasked with doing numerous improvements to the site, which we've been conducting over the last 12 months. There's been a significant level of investment in the car park to bring it up to a very good standard. However, as part of those works, we have encountered big problems on site. For those of you who have not actually visited the site, we currently have issues with the trees protruding through the tarmac to the extent that some of the tree roots are actually bigger than my bicep. That has pushed up the tarmac in various areas of the car park, and it's also impacting the highway's pedestrian way to a degree that actually it poses a very significant health and safety risk. We're surprised thus far that we've had no claims, but we would expect to have some claims at some point, given the amount of damage there is to the surface. So as part of the improvement works that we've been conducting, one of the areas was to resurface the car park and to address the potholes. We've done that in the main centre of the car park, but we have further damage along the areas. As part of our due diligence, we decided to enlist the help of MDJ arboriculturists to do a thorough survey of the site, with the view that we just wanted to ensure that we were above board, that we weren't doing anything that was going to upset the local community, and just to be a safe operator, really. So whilst I accept that there is a clear case for amenity here, I do believe that the TPO is prohibitive. I think that there's enough statutory governance there in place to sort of govern what we need to do in terms of making the necessary adjustments to the site. And we do strongly believe that the TPO is inhibitive in that respect. We've got some very clear issues with health and safety, as I mentioned, and we would like the opportunity to address that for all persons concerned. And at present, we just feel that we've just been inhibited. Just one last piece as evidence to this. It was raised around about 6 to 8 months ago that one of the walls that was at the entrance of Boulevard West was in extremely poor condition, given the fact that there's been no maintenance to the trees or evidence of maintenance to the trees over the years. And subsequently, since then,
Mr. Philby, I'm going to have to stop you there. You've had 3 minutes.
I was just going to say that the wall has collapsed. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll now move to the debate. Committee members wishing to speak should raise their hand. The officer will respond to queries one by one. Councillor Chariton.
I'm sorry if you've already covered this, but during our walk around the car park, the area that's been referred to, I noticed, I think it was pointed out to us, and we noticed very strongly that there were places where appeared to previously have trees and didn't, and as we don't currently have a TPO, my understanding was that those trees were cut down and never replaced. And I think that one of the concerns is if we don't have a TPO, that's exactly what's going to happen subsequent to this. That the trees will get cut down, the boulevard will lose its character. Well, it's already losing some of its character. If you look at it there, you could see there's a clear, nice line of trees that's been swept away. So eventually, what we're going to be left with is just one big car park. And I dare say my suspicion is that, and I've seen these tree roots and so on. Yes, some of them do poke out in 1 or 2 instances, but I wouldn't call it a massive hazard since the cars would usually be sitting on them. So that's my opinion. My suspicion is that you can't help but have the suspicion that some of this is that perhaps it's more to do with maximising car parking space than it is with actual health and safety and so on. But that's just my opinion. I just wondered if you would comment on the absence of trees having been felled and not replaced.
Yeah, there are a number of areas where there is not the significant tree cover. So there are a number of historic pits along the side of the road where there were previously trees. They have been felled in the past and they haven't been replaced. And there are some holes. You can kind of see where you see some of the earlier pictures you've seen where there's quite full canopy cover, and you see some gaps here we can see through the buildings. So on the right here, so the black dots roughly indicate where the existing trees are, and then of course we've got these spaces where we've had some trees removed and not replaced. There are a few more. It's just that there's some writing on here that looks like there's more trees than there are. But yes, but they are as far as I can see, they're all high-waste trees. So that would have been. We don't know who's removed them. Whether it may not have been the previous car park operator. It may have been West Sussex County Council. But yeah, there are certainly a number of trees missing.
Julian, anything else?
Yes, I mean, just to point, to reinforce the idea, I gained the impression that with the TPO there will be a requirement to replace any trees that are felled, because I think when we were doing the survey, I think it was clear that 1 or 2 of the trees were perhaps not in great condition and need some attention. And as you say, as the report says, ultimately one or two of the trees may have to be felled as a result. A TPO, by the way, doesn't mean that, no action must be taken at all on any of the trees forever. It means that we've got to, that the trees, that felling and pruning and so on of the trees have to be carefully managed. That's what a TPO is. So I don't know. So you keeping that in mind, I don't see that their TPO is going to cause a lot of harm, but may do us a lot of good. Thank you.
If I just come back on that, that's quite right. That some of the trees are in poor condition. As the speaker pointed out, there are some roots that are showing, and there is some damage to the highway. Certainly, you know, each of application, when an application does come, it will be viewed on its merits, and things like health and safety will be a very important consideration in that. County Council do have some powers to undertake works where there's a kind of imminent risk, and they can do things to trees anyway. So if that does happen, they can be removed. But this does give the council a bit more control. And yes, we may, if we have some trees that are lost, maybe due to the fact that they are now unsuitable for the site, they might have outgrown the site that they're planted in, then potentially if we get a replacement, it could be something that's more appropriate for the long-term future whilst retaining the amenity. So there's a kind of double thing there that having the TPO helps with.
Councillor Nawaz.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of information side of things. I believe you mentioned they're all trees on highway land. So if it's highway land, all are Wessex County Council. But we just learned that, and the report as well, owned by RCP as well. Is the land owned by RCP? They are RCP trees, or then it's a quite interesting objection into the letter. It says is Wessex County Council, and this is one of the things which say current recent TP applications made by people not been decided adequately within the time. How can we add more and then expect that we'll be able to fulfill our legislative time set for those kind of applications? So can you answer that? And the third one, which Councillor Charlton asked the question or mentioned that about tree fell. How many trees been fell in the last, say, couple of years or few years on the Boulevard? Do you know, have you got that number or not, which not been replaced?
Well, if I start with the last question, I don't know the exact number. There are a number of pits. There's 4 or 5, maybe 6 of the pits that are empty. But I couldn't give you a timescale exactly when those have been felled. But we've had, I think over time, there's been a sort of creeping erosion and loss of the trees. So over time, they've been reduced. I'm sorry, I don't know the exact time. But as they weren't under any sort of protection, we would have had no input and no control over it or that type of thing. It is quite unusual. The application appears to be made by a third party on trees that are, from the evidence I've seen, on highway land. Not that common. Usually the county council undertake works on their own trees. They would have had to have got permission and consent of West Sussex County Council to undertake those works as well. But as I said before, we've had other trees removed there and not been replaced, and we seem to be losing more trees along the road. I can't remember the other part. I'm sorry. What was the time taken to process those applications? I can't really answer that one, Clem. Would you be able to help at all?
I guess the issue is that unfortunately we don't get fee income for tree preservation orders. So in terms of the ability for the council to resource that, we have one tree officer, obviously, to cover the entire borough. So taking that into account, obviously, we have to be mindful of the limitations we have on resources and the extent to which that therefore may affect the ability for us to deliver the process within the time frame. It's a capacity concern, and unfortunately, we just can't generate the fee resources because then we don't get those from the tree preservation order process.
Just related to the last point, thanks for answers, Mark and Clem. When we know in the letter, and you mentioned that as well, those trees are already covered by Wessex County Council policy, and it clearly says there's no plan to fell it. So we already struggling with the resources and time and everything. And given that it's Wessex County Council, it's not a private developer, do we don't trust them, or what can be the issue? We still bringing TPO forward for those. So
the issue being that having looked at the site, we lost quite a lot of trees and they haven't been replaced, and we now do have a conservation hearing. It forms part of it, and we think that having some additional control will give us a little bit more control over sort of seeking replacements to try and maintain long-term amenity of the Boulevard. That's really what it is.
Councillor Jaggard.
Thank you. I think a lot of the things I was going to say have already been said, particularly by Councillor Chariton. When we were out on the Boulevard, it was really interesting, and I looked up what the word Boulevard actually means, and it is a wide road lined with trees. And this is, what it is, a wide road lined with trees that gives significant amenity level. And also, on the other side of the road now, there are quite a large number of flats, dwellings that people are living in and looking out of. And the trees not only provide something of beauty to look at, they also will help with the noise reduction, the pollution reduction along that road. And it is quite obvious when you're looking across from a distance where those trees have already been unfortunately removed, and there's a gap. And the buildings are no longer covered. So for residents, it is a matter of well-being as much as anything, as well as shoppers walking down there. The noise pollution, particularly, I would think is considerably deadened by those trees. And I appreciate that highways own the trees, but this. It was interesting. The gentleman from RPC said that some of the wall and some of the trees hadn't been particularly well maintained in the past. So actually having a TPO on them will give us more control, will give us oversight of anything that is happening, and maybe we'll be able to boost that maintenance, to get the maintenance done more thoroughly and carefully, and to look after the trees, to keep them healthy. Obviously, at the moment, a couple of them are in poor condition and will be removed, and that is absolutely fine, because if a tree is dying or dangerous, then work can be done without, we know that that's going to happen. But I think it just, with TPOs, it gives us oversight of our environment. It gives us all a say in what's going on, and I think that is significant, because on other applications for things, West Sussex are a long way away, and they're not that necessarily as protective as we are on our trees. And I think that's important for the TPO to go forward on that basis. Thank you.
No. Councillor Bidwell.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions, really. So, firstly, the TPO, if that were to be put into place, would there be any, I suppose, time constraints on West Sussex to actually act on the condition of the poorly conditioned trees? And secondly, I'm no expert when it comes to the biology of trees, but is there any particular way we can, when it comes to the trees which have roots that are protruding out of the the roads or whatever, can we not surgically remove specific roots? Will that damage the tree at all? Is that something that can be considered?
So, thank you for that. I'd say, in relation to the first question about whether there's time constraints on county council, no, they're ultimately responsible for maintaining the trees. We can't make them do things to things that are their property. The applicant themselves are applying to do works to West Sussex County Trees, and they would need to get their permission for it. It may well be they would be undertaking the works quicker than West Sussex could have done if there were these issues, but I can't really second guess that, because as I was saying, they were looking to do this to undertake improvements to the car park. In relation to the sort of health and biology of the trees, yes, well, often the removal of major roots quite close to a tree can have quite a significant impact on its health, and is generally not recommended, because if you're taking off very large roots close to them, it may well be that we would be looking at potential removal of the tree rather than removing roots that could, what can we say, might cause problems with its stability and result in sort of dieback. So in relation to the kind of biology of the tree, we'll look at any proposed works more holistically as a whole rather than just an individual thing. So sometimes a reduction of the branches might be an appropriate way forward to reduce a tree. Sometimes if it is something that's quite severe, like as we're pointing out, an obstruction from roots, it may be the tree does have to be removed. But we would view each of those on its own individual merits. That's all right.
Anything else?
Yeah, just to confirm this could still again be looked at if the trees were to be placed under a TPO?
So the county council themselves still have powers as a statutory undertaker, as the highway undertaker, to deal with issues relating to the trees. So if there is a kind of imminent danger or a real problem, they still have some controls over that. We would not interfere with the county council ensuring that maybe a tree's not going to fall on someone's head or something like that. So there is a kind of limit to where we are. Does that sort of answer the question?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay, as my colleagues have finished making contributions, I'll add a couple myself. I have asked questions of the officers during my pre-meet, so most of my answers are there. A couple of things about these particular trees. Crawley is a new town. It doesn't have as much of the character as some historic towns has. That part of Crawley is very much part of the character of Crawley, to the point where in the developments of the houses alongside this side of the road, the character was taken into consideration for the planning of those properties. Looking down from what used to be Morrison's along this way, it has a clear boulevard effect with fairly evenly spaced trees. There are gaps, but it's very important to keep that. It's also a separation of the civic part of the town and the commercial part of the town, where you've got the town hall here and the old town hall, the old civic centre, the college, all outside of the commercial area of the town. And the town does, it is a visual benefit and amenity to the area. When it comes to risks of walking, the strip of land to which the trees are is not used as a footpath. There is a very wide clear footpath that runs along the shops on the opposite side of the small lane, which is the walking path along that route. I don't recall seeing anyone walking along that stretch where the trees are, and I think I would notice, because it would be unusual to see, that there is a clear footpath on the opposite side of the road which is used commonly. The fact that there are problems with the trees does not prevent the TPO being put into place. If a tree becomes unsafe, or if there is a reason, then application can be made to remove the tree. But with that, it gives us the power to enforce that the tree is replaced, and a tree of a similar species or a similar, giving a similar canopy, can be put in place of the tree that is removed, and we still get to preserve what we find quite important to us. So I'm completely in favour of this this tree preservation order being confirmed, because I think it's really important for our town. Any other comments from any of my colleagues? All the committee members have had the opportunity to speak, so we will move on to the vote. The recommendation is to confirm. As the chair, I will move the recommendation. Can I ask for a seconder, please? Councillor Jaggard. Can I ask for a show of hands, all those for confirming the tree preservation order? That's unanimous. TPO application 05/2024, the car park, the Boulevard, has been TPO has been confirmed. There is no supplemental agenda. The business of the committee has concluded, so the meeting is closed at 20:06. Thank you all for coming.